something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stopped. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
It's day release once more with me, Clive, and him.
Robin.
Are you, did you forget to, because you don't usually like to have your name.
Well, it's good. I'll cut it out.
Okay. Isn't it easier just to change it and then you don't have to go to the trouble of cutting it out?
Oh, I could do that. Is this the beginning of day release now, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends whether you want to change your name.
No,
or not,
because we clapped after the name disappeared, so it's fine.
No, but the name's still there.
Not for me, it isn't.
No, what I mean is sometimes your tech fucks up though, and I have to send you my recording, and then.
Oh, well, it should be all right.
Okay. Yeah. It's good intro, this.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we are once again discussing some of the latest films. One of them is not quite so latest, but it's related to something we watched last time. And you know, no one watches anyway, and we make up our own rules, right?
Yeah, so, if people watch this, then it will be bad. Huh?
Would be amazed.
Yeah, and also it would be it would immediately sell out and start doing merch and stuff like that, and tie-ins and things like that.
We'd sell out. I'd probably sell some day release headscarves.
We probably should do that. I was thinking there are probably enough fans to do something like a.
Yeah, what would be a good? What would you like? Like, what would you? If you were watching such an awesome series as ours, what piece of merch would you like to get? Like a paperweight or something?
Yeah, I think a shield might be quite nice.
Like a full-sized one to protect.
Yeah. Maybe a kind of I don't know which kind, but maybe a Norman one or that would be good.
Okay.
So let us know in the comments.
Yeah, if you want us to make and distribute a day release shield, and you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, it'll be quite expensive.
That sounds like it might be quite expensive to mail it out around the world as well. Or we could just blow you a day release kiss to cheer up your day. Anyway, what we tend to do here is we talk about recent releases. I mean, we're in different parts of the world, so sometimes something comes out here or comes out there different. So it's not these are not hot takes on the things burning names on your marquee right this minute, but films released within the last 6 months to a year, let's say.
Ish, yeah. Or if we don't want to, we'd do another one. But you know.
And also we kind of tend to stray away from maybe some of the bigger titles that everyone's yapping about. We try and so we've got 6 titles for your delectation. this time. Shall I say in advance? Yes, I will.
All right.
See, I totally bypassed your authority there.
All right then. Well, it will say on the title.
Shut up. The Big Lie 2, sequel to The Big Lie. The Man Standing Next, Under Paris, Occupied City. Let me get this right. The Pig, the Snake, the Pigeon. So I keep getting that wrong. I keep putting in animals that aren't in the title.
Yeah.
The Pig, the cow.
Would it really be a different film if you did? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not sure who the pig, the snake, and the chicken were, but and the beast. And that's what we're going to be talking about this time. So yeah, so we'll kick off with The Big Lie 2, Stammer and the Genocide. Which is Chris Reeves's follow-up to The Big Lie, again narrated by Alexis Sale.
Yep.
And again, I mean, for me at least, I suspect you probably feel the same. Kind of rather underwhelming, like the first one was.
Yeah, it's not like they earn £1 billion from the first one, and now Big Lie 2 is kind of CGI and whatnot. It's very much the same production values, and Alexis Sale seems a bit sort of confused as to what he's narrating, I think, if I remember rightly. It has to be said that we're a bit delayed on this whole thing because it's been the summer holidays and various things. So I think I watched this right at the beginning of the summer.
Well, didn't you watch the online premiere of this?
I did.
It has since been released for free on YouTube.
Have you seen how many views it's got on YouTube then, or not?
I think there's quite a few. I mean, people are quite aware of these films, I think. But the trouble with this, I can kind of forgive the lack of production values thing, but the first film at least kind of had, even though we mentioned previous episode, it wasn't as good as like that Al Jazeera documentary or anything like that. At least it did have a very it had a thesis, right? It was basically how Corbyn got fucked over, especially via the ridiculous anti-Semitism claims and stuff like that, which is, that's something worth bringing to people's attention. Whereas this one is just pretty much, isn't this invasion of Gaza fucking horrible and disgusting? Which it is, don't get me wrong, but this is not necessarily something that needs to be brought to my attention.
It's nothing that you know what I mean? You couldn't find elsewhere, and it does feel like there is loads. I think we discussed this about The Big Lie 1, is that there is a massive documentary there to be had if you could get the funds and the kind of you need sort of like what Al Jazeera did, but more full-blown sort of left, where undercover reporting would be amazing if you could, because of the kind of the cynicism and the ties and all the stuff that's gone on, with that you just don't hear about. I mean, I'm thinking recently, there's 2 journalists who have been stopped by police now under the because we had the riots, right? That was something that was kind of that is actually
was there any down your way, by the way?
Well, I was in Italy, so and then they kind of, the anti-racism marches kind of saw them off by then, but I mean, a lot of them were north, really. When it came to London, it didn't.
Really, yeah, it seemed to be. I was kind of surprised actually. There wasn't much. They were very much outside the capital this time, weren't they?
Yeah, they off the back of that possibly, or something, or just because Labour in power, they've started jailing or not jailing, but kind of ruffling sort of low-level independent journalists who have expressed support for Hamas, sort of thing, in sort of, no matter how kind of sort of how convoluted they might have, any words in support of a Hamas related prescribed organization, which, because they promised to kind of crack down on freedom of speech online on the basis of these riots, because they were caused by misinformation, weren't they? But then it's just
disinformation, I would say.
Yeah, but then it's just sort of inevitable, it seems, that then they would use it to actually prioritize cracking down on so Richard Medhurst, he's a sort of a low level, writes for, I think, Electronic Intifada maybe, but anyway, low level independent journalist, and someone else I can't remember the name, Christina, I've forgotten her name. Anyway, so two left-wing journalists have had their houses raided, or well, he was picked up at the airport and shoved in a prison cell for 24 hours, and she was had her house raided and stuff like that. This is just all in the space of the last week, I think, last couple of weeks. So there's loads of stuff going on if you look it up, it's not reported by mainstream.
But the thing is, that's unfortunately that's not really what this talk is about, which maybe is what it should be about, right? Because that would make it. I think that was the point I didn't get it across very well, was whereas the first one was addressing an imbalance, because I think a lot of people have kind of moved on and accepted the official narrative that in some way Jeremy Corbyn was some kind of terrible anti-Semite, and that's it. And it's not necessarily common knowledge among people who aren't, Corbyn supporters, how fucked over he was. So the first doc had like an utility, even though it didn't do a very good job of it. And but the second one to me just seems really like, that's a good point you brought up. Yeah, if it was about that stuff, like that would be quite interesting, because that's stuff a little bit under the radar, and it's stuff that people need to be informed about. Whereas this one just seems to pretty much like, doesn't this thing in Palestine suck? And that's it. And the thing is, it's not as if some people claim, but I don't think so. It's not as if the media reporting on it has like downplayed or everyone's totally aware of what is going on. And for whatever bizarre reason, a lot of people are just, I don't know, condoning it somehow. It's weird. It's the strangest thing. I find it totally bizarre. Like I've either there's examples before of maybe certain media blackouts or things being reported very one-sided, and you could understand why people might be getting the wrong idea. But in the case of this, like, I don't think anyone's under any illusions that what Israel is doing in Gaza is seriously, fucked up. But people seem to be very either condone it or very afraid to criticize it. Well, and this doc adds nothing, I didn't think, to it's not even a debate. It's just and then trying to tie in like the title being Starmer and the genocide, I think is ever so slightly unfair, just because I'm not. It doesn't strike me as a specifically Starmer thing to have started or to have been propagating. I think he's just one of numerous people who haven't stood in opposition to it, right?
I don't know. I would probably go as far as to say that that what happened here and in the US paved the ground for Israel being able to kind of to be able to have that.
Yeah, but it didn't happen on his watch, though, to be fair.
No, but it sort of did, because the climate in Britain that was created around Jeremy Corbyn was the full establishment, including Conservatives and Labour, condemning the left as anti-Semites. So and I think that's useful, that narrative, because it feeds into the, BDS, the, movement and things like that, to force people, to force the idea that criticizing Israel is criticizing,
No,
Jews.
I understand that, but I feel that's a little bit of an in hindsight. I tend to think of them as two almost separate things, right? Like, so for instance, the chucking Corbyn under the bus and that insane legislation where any criticism of Israel is automatically anti-Semitic and all of that. That's one thing. And then I'm quite queasy, and I'm quite I don't feel comfortable really connecting that with because what's going on is just downright fucking wrong on every level, and I don't, you don't even have to get into it's an absolute travesty, and of course there is connections in terms of not being able to report on it properly without being called anti and all that. But it's just, do you know what I mean? It's almost like responding to it. You're getting pulled into the trap, right? That the criticisms are anti-Semitic, right? And the criticisms of what's going on have got fucking absolutely nothing to do with who's doing it, right?
To me, the problem is that if you aren't allowed to, if you aren't allowed to criticize Israel in this country and in America as well, then that emboldens the kind of behavior we've seen. I mean,
oh no, absolutely, yeah. No, you're right. But what I mean is, I'm just saying it's how can I say it? It obviously is connected, but then if you start retroactively going back and linking Starmer to it almost starts creating a non-existent conspiracy theory that you can imagine someone. Do you know what I mean? You can imagine proper anti-Semites running with it and turning it into.
I agree, but the problem is that we live in like a doggedly capitalist world where where dominant groups kind of take the lead. So I was saying we're going down a rabbit hole, and I'm a bit. It's you get to the point where you're kind of out of your depth very quickly anyway, and then.
But what I was going to say though is to your point is as in articulate as we both can be sometimes, I really do think that the last few minutes of us fumbling around and trying to kind of put together a concise is actually trying to dig a little bit deeper than a lot of stuff in The Big Lie too. To be honest, I have found it really like I I don't see the utility of this doc. Like I said, it just seemed to me like random footage that I'd seen on the news, and someone kind of going, "Oh, it's a shame," and that's about it. I don't know. Maybe you.
Yeah. Well,
I don't get me wrong. I feel that there's. I don't think they're coming from a bad place. I think both these docs are coming from a place of, people genuinely trying to do the right thing and trying to, they're admirable in what they're trying to do, but they're just not very good at it. And the second one has maybe kind of lost the plot a little bit. And the repeated computer graphic of Keir Starmer dressed like a soldier or something over and over again, like they were trying to make the point that he's like, like he's a puppet or something like that. I found that a little bit like, okay.
We're reaching trope territory.
They're doing it again. It seemed a bit rushed as well. I think that's the other thing. I think the first one, maybe there were it had a few years for the stuff in it to gestate and then to come up with something. But this thing came out almost immediately. And I understand why they felt there was a need to, but I feel almost as if the atrocities going on in Gaza was so, you couldn't ignore them any further. So by the time, maybe when they got the idea of making it, it seemed a lot more like, oh, this is something we have to get straight and set on record. And by the time it's come out, I think, a lot of the world has actually, it took a while, but finally come round to saying, hang on now, this shouldn't be happening.
I mean, but still the players who are defending Israel are still doing that.
Oh yeah, but I feel as if in terms of weight of public, not even. I think I just mean awareness more than anything else. Like I feel as if that's no longer. I mean, you'd have to really have your head in the sand at this point. I know some people do to think that this is in any way, shape, or form justified. Although, oddly enough, I did have a very interesting conversation with a friend of mine, a German guy, and it's always quite interesting. He's a very astute fellow, and he's very interested in, clear. Obviously, this conversation plays out very, very differently in Germany in general, right? And Germans are extremely trepidatious about getting into this area at all, right? And he's about the same age of us, and I was quite shocked. He actually made an argument, a pro kind of Israel argument for the way they've behaved. And even though I still ultimately disagreed with him on almost every point, it was a very well structured argument, and it was the only time that someone had ever so slightly kind of made me understand why the reaction has been quite so severe. So it was an interesting conversation to have from someone, just by where they happen to have grown up, have a very different take on it, which wasn't, it wasn't like a brainwashed take or anything like that. It wasn't, he could totally see my side as well, but he just put forward some kind of interesting talking points and ways of looking at things that I just hadn't considered before. And of course, in the tradition of this show, I've now totally forgotten and can't mention here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my partner's cousins, I speak to them sometimes. They're in Israel, and so the way they see it is, they're Israeli. The way they see it is, terrorists are attacking them. I mean, I'm not sure how I daren't speak to them at the moment, I guess, because I don't want to get into a kind of an argument.
No, it's a hell of a way to ruin a family picnic.
Yeah. And you can imagine it, but it's a weird dichotomy. You want them to be safe, but the way they see it is as terrorists attacking them. But yeah, I think the documentary makers wanted to, Starmer's a war hawk and has got these links to the Trilateral Commission. I can't remember if they mentioned that. They're probably just dying to kind of, because that's what they were seeing as like the thing that the world doesn't know, is how much of a kind of how close his ties are to the sort of the military industrial complex type thing. But I just think that the documentary would have been a better documentary would have been actually focusing on the lead up to the general election, because there was all this vote rigging and stuff. I don't think anyone really knows about it. Hardly anyone knows about it. Only people. I mean, are you aware of it or?
Oh no, this is news to me. Yeah.
So, and it's not kind of Donald Trumpy. Very. The Croydon Insider, which is, I work in Croydon, as you know, and the Labour hate the Croydon Insider because they have been on their case from day one, kind of, because Croydon Council is a complete mess, financial black hole and whatnot, complete mess, and they're sort of half Labour. Well, I canvassed for Labour in Croydon, so we won. I think it was Central Croydon and Croydon West or something. I can't remember what. So there's one Conservative or something. Central is like Labour, and anyway, the point is it's a mostly Labour council, but it's a mix, and it's kind of an awkward area, and there's been financial pilfering going on, but they were using this system, and this scandal has happened in several other constituencies to pick the the candidate to become MP, right? They pass it to a member vote, but they use this online voting thing. And I think when I was a member, I think they might have used it with us as well, and it seemed really shifty. But you don't, when you're on the left, the worst, this is the damned if you're on the left, you don't want to say, hang on, is there something funny? Because if you cry foul play on the left, you immediately get called a crank conspiracy theorist. But it was you'd have to look it up properly, but it's called a non-voter. But they basically kind of, it was a rigged voting system to favour the votes, the online votes. So you would get kind of in-person votes or whatever, which were which were looking like the left-wing candidate were going to win, and then suddenly the online votes would go whoop, and they would win. The right-wing candidate would win, and the other thing was that it was connected to the council candidate who won was the wife of the person who owned a non-voter as well. So there was compromise there as well. So they were using their own system to kind of vote on themselves. Anyway, Croydon Insider, the newspaper, broke the story and did a really good job kind of exposing Labour. But yeah, it's that sort of like that system now is still being used in different selection processes, and there's loads of stuff that everyone on the left sort of knows about. The election of Luke Hay, people on the NEC, the Labour NEC, cronies and stuff, which is now beginning to become mainstream news a bit, the cronyism stuff, and questions are being asked. But all of that build up to that, they could have been there and documented all of that really well and had a foundation to sort of go, because Al Jazeera weren't really covering that sort of thing. So they could have just, there's not been a full documentary on that whole, like this whole selection process of getting getting rid of left-wing candidates, popping in right-wing candidates, and obliterating the left, almost completely, and it was in the run-up to the election, it was kind of documented, but
right.
Not.
It was called parachuting people in.
Yeah, but rigging the system as well, so that in different ways, and it's just you didn't get to hear from any of the people affected by it or involved because it was they were on the left, so they didn't really get I mean, other than people like Faiza Shaheen who got national press coverage, and Diane Abbott, and she almost got deselected, or I don't remember what it was, but they didn't let her back in until too much public pressure came on. But yeah, so all that stuff could have been quite good.
One thing, slightly not really, it's kind of tangential, but I wanted to mention before we moved on, just because I found it kind of quite an interesting little aside, was so speaking of Alexei Sayle, so Alexei Sayle obviously is famous for having said for years, I hate that fucking Keir Starmer, right? Like, but it was quite interesting because I listened to the Alexei Sayle podcast, and I think it was the first one after the general election, and Labour got in, and it was quite interesting because he was saying, and I feel a lot of people felt like this, no matter how kind of cynical you are, or how much you might be deeply suspicious of Keir Starmer. Alexei Sayle was talking about how he was surprised himself. He was like, after the election results came in, he was actually surprised that he felt a little bit of hope.
A little bit lighter.
No matter how much.
Yeah. I mean, I think
at least it was maybe possibly a micro step in the right direction, right? And it's going to feel like that until, I guess, the first scandal.
Well, they're already starting, right? but yeah, I mean.
But does that
they've done a couple of things?
Did you kind of feel like that as well?
Yeah, because
like
I did resolving this
from far away viewpoint. I felt, oh, thank fuck. I mean, I don't expect necessarily miracles, but
yeah,
I did think, oh, this is good. This
is
good.
You're going from such a low base that it's just ridiculous. But it's like the resolving of the strikes. Doctors' pay deals, transport and things like that. Teachers, all those strikes that were kind of ongoing. Resolving that pay deal is something that's a big, and in general, it's just like, at least some arguments have been won, but Labour aren't really even part of it. It's just the fact that some arguments have been won, and Labour are still going on about, they're still pushing austerity as well. So really, that it's not really that much won. But at least the central problem of having immigrants be this sort of like scapegoat for everything, and then pushing just rampant.
At least the party in power, doesn't seem to be, anywhere near, kind of wanting to play with the likes of Nigel Farage or something like that, right?
No.
Which has got to be a good. I mean, because we were talking about the riots. I mean, I shouldn't have been surprised. The man is a fucking cunt through and through, right? But the way he played that was so underhanded, right? Just that fucking, I don't know anything, basically. But I'm just asking a question. Might it have been, and made something totally out of absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the balls on the man. I haven't heard anything, but maybe. and because of that cunt, knowing exactly what he's doing, That it was just I was shocked as someone who already hates the man more than you could possibly imagine. Even I was shocked by that. That was just wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ruined his reputation with that, because he was on the fucking TV so much during the election again. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, it's just, we'd stop turning to him for a comment on everything,
Yeah. And what's amazing is as well, he's on there every fucking 5 minutes talking about how there's a media blackout and people aren't listening to him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's time to listen to the forgotten Farages of the world.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to something a lot more wholesome. Military coup.
Yeah. Actually,
yeah. Not quite. Yes. So, yeah. So this is our slight anomaly because this isn't a brand new film. This is actually a film from 5 years ago. This is a film from 2019. Because last time we spoke quite favorably of the Korean film 12/12 The Day, or which, as we talked about, has an awful title, really. Yeah. It could have been 12/12 The Fridge, 12/12 The Quaker Oats, or just, yeah. But we liked the film, and that was about the kind of military coup that took place in 1980 in South Korea, right? So, so this film, The Man Standing Next, this is, I suppose, kind of the. I thought there was a bit more. I was led to believe there was a bit more overlap, but it's pretty much a prequel to the events.
Just what happened just before is what they're just talking about in 12/12 The Day.
So this is basically
happened, about in 12/12 The Day, right? Sort of the day after,
Yeah, it was 47 days after, to be exact. It was kind of amazing, particularly tumultuous time in South Korean politics, right? But so yes, for those who don't know, in 26th of October 1979, President Park Chung-hee was assassinated in the Blue House by the guy who was the director of the KCIA, right? The Korean CIA. What was it? Kim Jae-gyu. And it's interesting to me. So this happened like the year we were born, right? And it's not something I really knew much about until, well, there was a film that came out in 2005 called The President's Last Bang, which is about the events of that night. It's a kind of a very different film, not quite as good as this, I don't think, but kind of a very angry black comedy almost of a film, which it would make for an interesting double with this, I think, a slightly different take on it. But so this is the 40 days leading up to the assassination of the president, right? And there's always been some speculation as to why Kim Jae-gyu did it. So, for instance, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, but in The President's Last Bang, that film was very much presented all these people, the president, the director of the CIA, the head of the president's security. They were pretty much just almost like gangsters, just like jostling for their own territory more than they were politicians, right? And it was just an explosion of violence between a bunch of fucking thugs kind of duking it out, right? Whereas this film has a much more sympathetic take, I would say, on Kim Jae-gyu, as played by Korean superstar Lee Byung-hun, who's kind of Lee Byung-hun is obviously, like, famous for being ripped and good-looking guy, but he's kind of tried to kind of smooth himself down a bit and put himself in a suit, but he's still, you can kind of tell he's a quite fine specimen of a man, right? All those rippling muscles and things, you can still kind of tell. But he's a good actor. I like Lee Byung-hun, and I think he's really, really good in this film. So he plays the key CIA director, and this film kind of makes the case that that he basically killed the president for the good of the country, right? Yeah. Because he was getting increasingly despotic, and there's the guy playing his head of security, Lee Hee-jun, and he's kind of very much in favor of bringing out martial law when there's riots and protests in Busan and some other places.
So, I mean, maybe this is not necessarily useful to bring up on this, but it doesn't matter. No one's watching, so just thinking about, because actually, anyone that, other than you who've done some research, I didn't get to do any research on this. But it's Lee, the head of the sort of the president built his own sort of inner security cell. Right?
Yes.
And then they just ended up getting too much power, and it was headed by Lee. What's his name again? Lee.
Well, the actor was Lee Hee-jun. I don't know the guy's name. Plus, they've changed the names in the. So we should mention that the film.
Oh yeah, did it? But
technically based on a non-fiction novel that was serialized, but it's pretty much.
I was having trouble watching the film, trying to work out who may have been a key figure in the in 12/12 the day. That was all, and I thought the head of
I see. You were trying to make the connection.
The central intelligence was also in that, but the.
Yeah.
But
I think it's plus as well as confusing because the actor Lee Sung-min, who plays President Park, was also in 12/12 the day as a totally different character as well, right?
Okay.
So
but the head of the head of the president's in, what are they called? It was like his special secret service.
Security. Yeah, his private security, right?
Yeah, who ended up becoming massive. That did.
Right, right.
And the head of that is still the head of it in 12/12 the day, right?
I think
the kind of bald guy, who I thought was good in both, but better in 12/12 the day. If it is the same, the same
character, but it's a different actor.
I know it's a different actor, but same character. If it is the same character,
yeah.
But I was still having trouble. So you confirming that is the case? It was still the same.
Yeah. I think so. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it helps to. Maybe we just stick to this film is maybe easier. Yeah. So, like I said, there was this novel by Kim Chung-sik, which was basically it was non-fiction, but I guess for whatever they had to write it as a fictionalized piece, and they just changed some of the names and things. And then, so the other important character, as well as played by Kwak Do-woong, is the previous director of the CIA, who went to Washington and was involved in. And this is something I did learn from this film. I didn't know much about, was this Korea Gate scandal, which was just previous, which was about a misappropriation of funds and bribery and things in Washington. And I'm wondering if the next big political thriller to come along will be about Korea Gate, and we'll watch that for the show as well. I would quite like to see a political thriller as well.
Didn't they paint him as a sympathetic character though?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and I looked him up, and the reality of that man also seems like
Well, wasn't he also as a character in 12/12 the day? But I don't want to again go back down the road.
Well, no, I don't think so, because at that point he would have been killed, right?
Okay.
Well, that's the other thing. He went missing, right? Suspiciously, he went missing while in Paris, and some people think, and this film certainly kind of follows that line of reasoning, that he was probably assassinated and ended up as chicken feed, right? So it's a bit of we like 12 a day as well takes a certain amount of artistic license, with bits where there's kind of lacuna of facts that we're not quite sure about. Like there's a few car chases and actiony bits which maybe didn't happen, and there's a bit where Lee Byung-hun's character like sneaks into the Blue House quite easily and hides in the cupboard and listens through the wall. And I was like, don't know about that, but there's not too much of that, and I expect a certain amount of that. It is a thriller after all, so the balance between like authenticity and making it a movie didn't bother me here. Did it bother you? Did you think that stuff was too much?
Again, this was one of the ones I watched quite early on in the summer, so the memory is vague. But I was as deeply in there as I was with 12 a day, in that I didn't know what was going on half the time. I have to say, I was very confused a lot of the time. But it didn't matter, because it was you could follow it, but it's not your familiar history, so you're kind of a bit lost. You get lost very easily, but but it didn't matter, because again, the intrigues and the ins and outs of of who was double crossing who and stuff was all well played and kind of
no, it's a good thriller as well as a kind of interesting take on some history. Directed by Woo Min Ho, who also did that film The Drug King, which was supposed to be really good. Did you see The Drug King?
Nope.
I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list. Apparently it's very, very good. So I think we both like this film in the same way as we like The Man's. I prefer this a little bit to 12 the Day, I think, but both are solid films, and would be an interesting like watch one and roll straight into the other one would be interesting.
I think you can do that easily.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, I haven't got much else to say about it.
No, that's I don't think that. I mean, like I said, I think it's. I just think it's something to champion. I like because it's difficult to get that right. It's difficult to get a film that is speculative history that is more or less fairly accurate and convincing, or makes a good case for it, but also is a good propulsive thriller. Because that's the sweet. I like a thriller that sends me off to look things up, and I like that. For me, that's just my kind of thing. I like a good political thriller.
Again, it's the way that the characters are played. There's no one who's a out and out hero. Everybody's flawed. Everybody's also kind of just angst ridden. I quite like, they're all really angst ridden about their whether they're gonna they're gonna lose their lives or their roles, sort of thing. All their money, they're gonna end up. So they're all kind of partly fighting for themselves, and then for their country as well, maybe, if they are, it's never as just simple as just I gotta do
and
this,
as usual with Korean films, there's a nice bit of dark humor in there as well, isn't there, where that character who there's a kind of a race against, like who's gonna be the group that actually kills him, right? That's kind of quite amusing. And of course, top acting from everyone as well, right? That's the one thing you always get from a Korean film. I really like I don't know how familiar you are with Lee Byung-hun.
No, I'm not. You're introducing me to all these people, and
he's like, I tell you, he was also in. He has tried to crack Hollywood a couple of times. He's in one of those awful G.I. Joe films.
Oh.
As well, because he's in very good condition. He's very much an action guy.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I think I saw both G.I. Joe films for some mad reason. I think they came out just back when I was still watching all the new crap out of Hollywood before I stopped.
Would come out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, right. On we go then.
Yeah. We've got 8 minutes left. All right.
Yeah, that's all right. It's all chopped up anyway.
Speaking of chopped up.
Yes. No one. Under Paris, yes?
Yes.
Yes, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so this is a brand new French film by Xavier Gens. And so interestingly, there are two films, totally coincidentally, there are two films in today's batch by directors who I have sort of auditioned for.
Oh.
Well, actually, sort of in the case of Xavier Gens. The other guy I did actually audition for, and he was in the room. Xavier Gens he's a friend of mine, actually. My mate Jan, who lives here, French director as well. And there was an anthology horror film made a few years ago called Tokyo Grand du Nord, and it was all horror stories filmed in Tokyo, but by French directors. And I have a small part in one of them. But originally, Xavier Gens was going to direct one of the segments, and I video auditioned for him. I don't know if he even saw it, because it quickly became apparent that he wasn't going to be one of the directors of Tokyo Grand du Nord. So that's my almost kind of sort of auditioning for Xavier Gens' story. It was a cracking anecdote, I think you'll agree.
It ended there.
Yeah. So he's the guy who made...
I'd like to see Tokyo, whatever you called it.
Tokyo Grand du Nord. I'll have to send you a copy. I do have it. I'll write it down or I'll forget. Yeah, you can see me for all of, 30 seconds.
Sounds good.
And I get to do a dodgy French accent.
Because
I'm a Frenchman in it.
Yeah. Worth it. All the way.
So Xavier Gens is the guy. He made that awful. It's still most famous. He made that live action adaptation of the Hitman video game way back with Timothy Olyphant. But he's made some interesting films. He's made films I quite like called The Divide. Anyway, this is on Netflix. Yes. I suppose the biggest star is Bérénice Bejo. I don't really know her, but she seems to be the lead.
Big shot. Yeah.
And it's a film about sharks in the Seine.
It's a film about sharks who have been modified by climate change, right? Pollution. Is that right?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I something to do with microplastics. And
it's altered their DNA and made them highly aggressive, and somehow be able to multiply at a ridiculously rapid rate.
Yeah. And survive in the Seine.
Yeah, and survive in fresh water. Yeah. Where in reality, it would just slowly kill them.
And wouldn't you know that the Olympics are coming up? Actually, it's a thinly veiled, because obviously the Olympics did just happen. It's some kind of triathlon or something, right? And it's the classic.
But it was still Olympics, wasn't it? It was because they had the mayor of Paris, who is a woman as well, and they don't look that, but they look fairly similar. They dress sort of similar. So, it was fun watching the Olympics, because I did keep thinking that everyone was going to get eaten by sharks.
Yeah. It's funny as well. It's like one of those things. It's interesting. They can't seem to get it. It's like this thing of, all right, we're going to do a Jaws ripoff, and everyone knows it's a Jaws ripoff. That's fine. No one minds. But it's interesting that people keep coming, like they feel almost obligated to do the Jaws. So like, well, we got to have an event. and the mayor says, no, we can't shut down the, it's like, it's interesting that they keep doing this. Like, can't you do something like, it's like, no, we must do this version of
the mayor, though, on this one sort of refused to shut down the event after she'd seen sort of 3 people on a live feed? Or was it even after that really quite a good scene though of all the teenagers, the protesters in the catacombs?
Yeah, that's like the one scene I quite liked. Because it's something a bit different. It's underwater in the catacombs. Yeah, this feeding frenzy. Although I don't know how you felt about it. I was quite looking forward to this. I thought it would be a fun kind of trashy. I like the idea of Jaws and the Seine. But I have to admit, it didn't really. Apart from that one scene, it didn't really work for me. It was like lacking in tension or something.
Maybe I quite liked it. I think
you enjoyed it?
I didn't have any illusions. I didn't know what it was about at all, so I just watched it completely blind. And for all I knew, I only had the title, and for all I knew, Under Paris was going to be some really serious chin stroking, about the underbelly of Paris.
So you seriously had no idea?
I had 000 and nothing at all. So I thought Under Paris, it looked like, that sounds like some sort of serious, about the poverty and the crime rate in Paris and stuff. So I was quite pleased with it.
Yeah, shark crime. Yeah, no, I can see that. I think if you had totally not known and you turned out to be a trashy shark film, that probably might have put you in a good mood.
It did.
Yeah,
and then
I was expecting something a bit more. I don't know. I think the other problem I had with a little bit is none. So the thing with Jaws, right, is you have those 3 guys, right, and you get to know them really well.
Yeah.
All the characters in this are quite boring and nondescript, and I couldn't really tell. They don't have strong characteristics, or they're all just quite dull.
It was definitely a film that was sort of bereft of ideas, hence the ending, which I guess we won't talk about, but the ending is a classic, like, what do we do now? Then I know.
I always quite like a nice bleak ending, though.
Yeah, I do. I liked the ending. I thought, good. But it was also a classic. Just I don't know how to end this. It's just
right. But no, I did like that. Yeah, I did make a note. I just noticed. I wrote nice bleak ending, though.
So I thought that catacomb scene with the teenagers was really well done, because it was just nicely panic stricken, and just that was it was definitely
so you're in the middle of a thought.
I don't remember it now.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah, we got
I was just saying about how much I loved the panic stricken slaughtering of teenagers in the catacombs.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, even though with all kind of zealoty type of people, I think even if you're broadly in favor of the message, there's always something satisfying about smarmy people who think they're 100% right about everything being killed, right? Like even if you're generally broadly in favor of what they're saying, just that kind of absolute snotty, definite 100% belief in oneself that comes with youth. You like seeing that ripped to shreds every now and again as an older person, right?
Yeah. The desperate looks on their faces. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah, why not?
To Occupied City. Should we talk about this for 4 hours? Or?
Well, I'm thinking rather than review the film, let's talk about what happened in our buildings that we live in back in the 40s.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't near the 40s, but
mine was blown up actually in the war. So
okay.
these are rebuilds. So
while there's just footage of us, like, I don't know, using a bicycle pump or
pogo learning how to pogo.
Yeah.
Outside my house.
This is Occupied City, the recent film from Steve McQueen, who I am actually a big fan of. I don't know where you stand with Steve McQueen.
This is, I think, might be the first Steve McQueen thing I've watched. I've been told lots of good things, but it's.
Did you not see 12 Years a Slave, for instance? That's
okay.
That's his biggie, right? Because that's the one.
Been told did he win?
He did win.
Huh?
He did win. He did win an Oscar for that, right?
Yeah. And the Axe trilogy or something, or
Small Axe. Yeah. Well, so he's he comes from a fine art background, right? He's an artist, and
famous for that video where the house falls down, right? And he's standing there.
Yes. Filmmaker. I really like his stuff, and my favorites of his are, you mentioned he did that Small Axe 5-part series for TV. There's one in there called Lovers Rock, which is about like a sound system house party in West London in the early 80s. Jamaican family. I fucking love that film. It's really good. It's like one of those films, like, I guess rare, like when a film manages to capture like a love of music, like manages to actually convey that, you know, like and I love Lovers Rock. And the other one I really, really like is Hunger, about Bobby Sands and the hunger strikes. That's a fucking astounding film. And all these other films I like as well. Even that one he did like a thriller, right? Like a Widows, which was like the closest he's come to doing like a big Hollywood thriller action film. That was good. All these films are good. But Hunger and Lovers Rock are masterpieces, I think. But this is his latest, a whopping 250-minute documentary based on a book by his missus, right? Bianca Stichter, who is Dutch.
Yeah.
And she wrote this book. And I think there's an art installation as well, maybe.
I thought it was probably an art installation. I did mean to. He was on. I heard him talking about this on Radio 4. And and then didn't, you know.
Was that an impression of Radio 4 or Steve McQueen?
No, that was an impression of me going.
Okay.
And then I'd forgotten.
Sounds nothing like you. Your own impression of you sounds nothing like you. It's kind of interesting. You'd think you would nail it, right? Above anyone else.
Not at all. That's my internal voice. Is what it's like.
Ah, right. Okay.
Oh, shut up, you fucking. Like, say some words. Where's your diction? What's wrong with you?
I'd like to see a 4-hour documentary narrated by your inner voice.
It's funny. I'm bringing one out. That's why I started doing it, because I'm trying to publicize it. No,
it's going to be a hit, I think. See, it's already good.
Really.
This is going to happen.
Piss myself off. Right. Shut up. Anyway, what were the
so I suppose we just to finish
explain what it is.
So it's basically, from what I understand, the book is a list of basically addresses in Amsterdam and what happened there when it was occupied by the Nazis, right? Particularly what happened to the Jewish population and other assorted Nazi atrocities, right? And so this film is some of it, because apparently there's like thousands of addresses in the book. I've no idea how many are in this film. I felt like a few dozen at least, right?
And what, the number of addresses? Probably.
Yeah.
50 odd.
So it's basically they show an address as is now, or whatever's there instead of an address. In the case of, there's a lot of it ends with demolished, right?
Yeah.
This is the narration by Melanie Hayes, and then she explains what happened in that place back in whatever 1942 or whatever, and what happened to people there. Meanwhile, we have a look at what's happening there now, which is just random people feeding pigeons, or
massively distracting.
Okay, or actually, well, some of it was filmed during the pandemic as well, right? So they actually captured quite a lot of
protests,
anti-vaccine protests and things.
Yeah, various other protests as well. It's kind of, I mean, I guess, central Amsterdam and stuff is kind of a protest central. quite a
it's quite a hippie part of the world.
Yeah.
And there's also like we see a bar mitzvah as well at one point, and all sorts of random stuff. And some of it's kind of interesting because it's Steve McQueen. So like there's a few, like there's like a badge or something, or like a bridge, because he's very good at choosing what to keep his focus on in some of his films, like the long takes and things that unfold. He's got a sense for that, but some of it is just people.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder how long he spent in each location to pick the shot that he picked, or if it was him in the first place, where he sent a crew out to do different things in different places. But I personally, I found it really hard to watch the thing that was going on and listen to the facts. So often had to either rewind or just ignore what I heard. And I one of the things I meant to look up was whether that was supposed to be part of it, whether it's supposed to be try to, or I don't know. And I don't really understand the point of that, if it was can you ignore the or can you I don't know, can you deny the past
I think you're on to, I think it is part of it. And it is, you can tell it comes from someone like an arty person, right? And I found it interesting, actually. It shouldn't. It's 250 minutes of just random street footage and someone banging on about horrible things that happened 80 years ago. I mean, it should be pretty boring. But it's not. But it's weird. I found it. I watched it. I tried to watch it in one sitting because I wanted to, but I unfortunately I did have to watch it in two because something happened and I had to stop watching it. But I found it a weird mix of occasionally really almost hypnotically absorbing, and I was just watching it really intently watching it for long periods of time. But then other times it became almost like background noise. But that seemed to make sense as well. That's almost how you were supposed to be viewing it. And occasionally you'd tune in and you'd hear something and you'd be like, oh, that's terrible. But then everything is terrible, right? Everything is
everything
horrible.
You hear is terrible. I mean,
I think that might be the point as well. That when you have so much horrible stuff compounding, it almost becomes you don't see the detail anymore, right?
The melee of daily life, it becomes part of what you're watching almost, or I don't know. But it's also separate from that. It's but I guess it seems like a gallery piece, and it's one of those ones where if I were in a gallery, I would probably sit there doggedly really importantly watching it, until my back ached, and then I hobbled out and thought, oh, come back and watch it another time, and I wouldn't come back. Whereas, having it released means you could watch it in comfort, and you could genuinely watch the whole thing.
That's interesting. I almost had the opposite thought. I thought, like, if it was in a gallery, it's the kind of thing you'd have a look at for 5 minutes and earnestly pretend that you were taking, and then you'd wander off and look at something else. Whereas having it as a film, like, I didn't see it in a theater, but I can imagine seeing it in a theater would really focus you on having to kind of pay attention to it. Although I don't know if it would work in a. I think it works.
I don't think I could watch it in a cinema. It would be too painful. I would have. I think I would have walked out. I wouldn't have been able to, because it's too serious or whatever. It's just like you say, it does ebb and flow. It's got but it was both boring to me and not boring. It was sort of
exactly.
I could only watch it in half, but it's partly sort of every time I watched it, it was when you've got kids or whatever, it's sort of like you have this window that you can watch something from 9 till 10 or whatever, and so you're always tired at that point anyway. So it was sort of half an hour bursts so we watched it half an hour each time. We tried to watch it quite a lot from the beginning, and then decided on half hour.
But I think that works. I don't necessarily think it's a film that demands.
No, it doesn't demand to sit all the way through. No, not at all. I mean, I would say I didn't miss out from doing that at all. It's I don't quite understand the point of stuff being so distracting. I'm not sure if that was the point. Like there's so many, but maybe it is. Maybe it's like, well, this is all life. This one thing happened here, and in a way, it's sort of playing with your. If there is a point to it, then it's playing with you. And again, I'm sure I meant to look up Steve McQueen talking about it, because I'm sure he goes into it. But if I was to hazard a guess, it would be that it's playing with the fact that when you hear these stories, you start to conjure up a mental image in your mind's eye, of this character, it's 27 Unterstracht, here's the home of Albert, something who was a member of the resistance, and was escaped from this camp, and did that, and you start to build a picture of this person, and at the same time vying for your attention is there's this kid on a swing trying to balance their ice cream or whatever and lick it at the same time, and it's there's two things that are splitting your mind in half at all times in this film, and I'm not sure what the point of it is, but whether it's to do.
There's a kind of hypnotism of the banal sometimes. Like, the other thing it reminded me a little bit of is Frederick Wiseman's documentaries. Frederick Wiseman famously makes these docs where he just chooses an institution or a place, and there's no narration or anything. He just shoots things that happen there. And then put it together. And his documentaries I find totally fascinating and absorbing, even though for large stretches of time nothing particular happens. But I could somehow quite like watching nothing particular happen in a spot. But this has that extra. It was like a Frederick Wiseman documentary, but with this other thing layered on it. It's definitely a really interesting. I'm really glad I watched it, and oddly, I might even watch it again.
Wow!
But there's something. It's an interesting.
I'm sure you get a lot from it if you watch it again.
Yeah,
I just don't
there's
know.
something about it which is really, and I think it's something that takes a while to digest. Or I'm just glad it exists. I don't quite know what to do with it, where to put it, what the utility for it is, how to review it, how to discuss it, how to. I don't quite know, but I'm glad it exists, and I'm very pleased to have seen it.
Yeah, I guess like there's some bits where they're having a big memorial service with all the names of Jewish people who were in, I think that just died, or
died or sent off to Soviet War or whatever.
And
Mauthausen, I noticed, was mentioned quite a lot. A lot of people ended up in Mauthausen of all the concentration. I don't know why that way. If it's like proximity to that place or.
And and there's always this sort of thing of the importance to remember, and Remembrance Day, or the importance to remember, and in a way, I guess he flips it on its head by having all this stuff, daily life kind of distracting you, because when we, if that's what he was thinking about, is when we, when you, in the sense that he's sort of could be saying, remembrance can be part of the daily distraction of life. It doesn't have to be you stop and remember.
Yeah, because ironically, there's so much atrocity, you remember none of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember not one of these stories, and each story in itself is massively.
It was fascinating as well.
Right? Yeah. But I remember not one of them.
And I did look
up. And I don't think that's just my hang up or my problem or my lack of. I think a lot of people would have that. You just kind of let it wash over you, right?
I mean, the riots were going on as well, and so I did go down my own rabbit hole in terms of things that I'd sort of wondered about, because obviously Hitler was like National Socialist Party, and I just thought, well, how were they socialist and stuff? So that's why I said to you we could watch the film the Edelweiss Pirates, was because
which we might watch next time.
Because I was just thinking about how much what's happened here with the riots is you think all that we really need in this country is, because actually Nigel Farage hasn't really got it. He's got it a bit, and actually Boris Johnson had more of the Hitler style, if you like, which is to say that what Hitler did was, he convinced the working classes that actually, through nationalism, through racism and nationalism, they were the sort of chosen people and were, able to kind of to lift themselves, and they sort of promised a lie of an equal, society.
The Volk, right?
Yeah, I've forgotten the name of it. Yeah, but just providing poorer people with the like leisure camps and things like that. So it did this did have this kind of parallel going on in real life as well, with the riots and things, where you just think all they need is sort of someone just to promise that, to use immigration, but to promise, like Boris Johnson did. That's why he was so popular, because he said he had the levelling up agenda, is to promise socialism, but only for that one group. It's kind of like the resentment of sharing with anyone else, but people.
I think like one trap you could fall into with this film, which I think some people might have got the wrong end of the stick a little bit. So because they happen to have filmed during lockdown or the pandemic or whatever, they did capture, some of the anti-vax protests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think some people have maybe got it into their heads that Steve McQueen's trying to make some kind of, equivocation between the Nazis and, the vaccine Nazis.
Anti-vax,
yeah. So but I don't think that's I think it's totally coincidental.
I don't know. If he was doing that, it didn't really come across like that. No, I mean, like I say, the only thing that kind of led me down this rabbit hole is this question of, how do we, how did we get to that point in the first place, where Hitler, rose to power, and how?
Well, I think you have to have the whole context of post World War One and the extreme austerity and
exactly. And then we've got these riots going on, but the connection was really just that film was really just the aftermath. Yeah, I think the I don't know, the anti-vax protests, all the protests that were in that film seemed quite mild, really, and kind of, I don't know, didn't seem
I tell you what's interesting about seeing a lot of anti-vax protest stuff is, when you see other wrong-headed kind of, when you see like people like recently the riots or whatever, and you see people out there, obviously there are some people out there just using it as an excuse to have a good time, but there's a lot of rage and anger and people shouting, and all the anti-vax people seem quite joyous in their kind of, they seem really pleased to be hanging out together and breathing on each other. Or
I think it was the context of the time, wasn't it? Because in London as well, the anti-vax protests. I've started following this guy called Immortal Aliens, who seems to be, I don't know if he's pro them, but he seems to be accepted by them and got and so he goes out with his camera and stuff. So he got favourable access to but everyone seemed kind of really loved up. But it's the context of them. For some people, I think the lockdowns and stuff was such a so anathema to the way they
live. Normally.
That they going out was like freedom for them, whereas for me it was sort of just, it was freedom for me to finally be locked in and not have to see.
And for me, nothing changed at all because I'm pretty much always here. So I often tell people this. Actually, it's funny, you hear people talk about, now that we're through the other side of it, people talk about, the pandemic, and for them it really was like this massive
awful
kind of
thing,
awful thing that happened in their life. And I have to confess, for me, it was just, I remember that. Hardly anything changed for me, to be honest. I wore a mask when I went out, and that was about it. I don't feel like I've lived through, some people feel as if they've lived through, almost like they lived through a world war, or they like some sort of plague or something. And I don't feel that at all. So I feel quite disconnected from some people. So it was interesting how everyone related to that event in such different ways, right? People really were scarred by it. I want to talk about. Remember that.
I mean, obviously, I feel for all the people who died, but then I did write a whole book in the pandemic, and now I haven't got any time to do the second draft. I keep finding it's really hard to do, so I kind of feel like I need to mention it.
Just saying. I don't know. I'm just asking questions.
Would it be a problem? I can only do Boris Johnson.
Be so bad.
So bad.
Stop.
Stop. No. Yeah. Well, should we go on to
yes.
pig
Here we go.
thing? Pig,
the
shark.
elephant, the horse, and the mongoose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose we should do the title once right, because it's called The Pig, Snake and the Pigeon.
Shark.
No.
Snake.
I keep wanting to put chicken in there as well, but there's no chicken. It's the pig, the snake, the pigeon.
Oh, you must have said snake to me and I wrote down shark. Anyway.
Yeah, and even I didn't say snake, I wrote down chicken, because I keep wanting to put chicken in there. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I don't know why I have such a problem with this.
It can be quite deadly.
Pig, snake, pigeon. But that's the only time I'll get it right. So anyway, Vol, the rat and the finger mouse from 2023 is a Taiwanese film directed by Wong Ching-po. Actually, the first Wong Ching-po film I've seen, even though I remember his first film coming out way back in 2003. He had a film called Fubo, which sounded really fascinating, and I never got around to watching it. I have a copy, I just never got it. And he's made a whole bunch of films since then, and I haven't caught any of them. Have you seen any of other Wong Ching-po's films by any chance?
Can't say that I have, unsurprisingly. But
right.
I'll yeah, no.
Yeah, so yes, the lizard, the aardvark.
When that one comes out.
The spider is the first one of his that I've seen.
Oh.
And yeah, so I found this kind of quite interesting. Let's get a kind of a plot. Spoiler alert a little bit this way. I'm not going to go into huge spoilers, but basically it seems to be about a crim, a gangster in the shape of Ethan Zwan, and he seems to want to be the top. He wants to be the number one criminal in all of Taiwan, right? So we see him at the beginning at this kind of gangster's funeral, gunning down some other gangsters, and then being chased by the cop played by Lily Ren, I think is the cop. I don't know if he's the snake or the pigeon or the pig. I don't know.
Pig.
And
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same thing that in Taiwan as it is.
Yeah, no, maybe not. So it's this kind of odyssey where it's kind of changes into a bunch of different films, right? So it starts off, there's this kind of, and it seems like it might be a kind of exciting action thriller. There's some good fight scenes, this long chase fight thing with the cop, and I'm thinking, oh, this is quite exciting and like adrenaline pumping. And then it kind of turns into a very old-fashioned kind of retrograde, almost kind of gangster film where there's like a girl played by Jingle Wang who's like in danger. There's like a gangster who looks after her but also kind of demands sexual favors from her because her mother was his moll who's in prison or something like that. And that whole section seems like, oh, this seems a bit like, this is 2023 already, but this seems like something from the 70s, like a super macho and the kind of pathetic girl in it. So that part of the film, I was like, oh, I don't like the way this is going. And then it turns another corner because he's tracking down all these other like most wanted people who are in hiding.
He finds the three most wanted people in criminals, and he wants to kill them all so that he can.
So he's the most notorious, right? And then he ends up at the most interesting section was he ends up at this kind of spiritual retreat, right? Like with this guru guy, and then he actually gets turned and radicalized, and he actually starts to believe and tries to mend his ways, and then something happens, and then and then after that section, then he does kind of try to atone for his sins, and then he gets executed, right? in a way that I was like, really? I had to look it up.
Yeah, I looked it up too.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize that's the way they do it. Yeah. And also, oh well, we can go on to that, but yeah, then I was looking up. Japan obviously has not as many. So you have North Korea, South Korea, China, Japan, all still have the death penalty in different forms, I think. Anyway, yeah. It was just and all in this kind of weird way of doing it. And well, Japan, I think, is lethal injection, isn't it? But
I think it might have switched, although it wasn't that long ago. It was hanging. You'd be surprised how recently it was actually still hanging. But like you said, it's rarely happens, right? People sit on death row for decades and decades and don't get called up to actually be killed. It is quite rare to get an actual execution. But so here's my thing, because I'd be interested to see how you got on with this film. So I'll just get my thoughts out the way first, just because I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and I find this film quite interesting because this film, I should, by all rights, not like this film, right? I think. Because, like I said, it started off and I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be a kind of fun, like adrenaline pumping, kind of Fudo style gangster thrillery thing.
Like two extremes, cop versus ridiculously crazy hard gangster type person.
I thought it was going to be that, and then it turned into, like I said, this old school gangstery thing that seemed quite retrograde, and I wasn't that into that. And then when it gets into the cult stuff, like that's the most deeply satisfying. Like when he eventually, takes his vengeance, that is so deeply satisfying. And also, I could feel like, I bet the whole film, but certainly that sequence, I bet it was built backwards from that premise. Like, I could feel the filmmakers thought, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a scene where there's this kind of and then someone just puts them all down one by, like, and how do we get there? And they worked backwards, right?
Maybe.
And the reason I mention this is because you have this fractured kind of, so you have this bit, you have that bit, you have that bit that seems kind of prefabricated, and then the thing is, so that could be, oh, that's cool and all that, and whatever, but it shouldn't have an emotional weight. It should feel very cynical. It's just a filmmaker trying out kind of cool stuff. Oh, wouldn't this be cool? Wouldn't this be cool? And it shouldn't have an emotional weight, right? When it gets to the final section, when he's like atoning for his sins and kind of sees what a bad guy he's been and all that stuff, right? That should, because of all the stuff coming before that isn't of a piece and seems cynical and just kind of surface level, that should see really glib and sentimental. And at this point, I should be, fuck this film. That bit was cool, but the rest of it. But somehow, I don't know how you felt about it, really weirdly for me, I don't know, this shouldn't be the case. It all coalesced, and I actually found that last segment actually quite emotional and moving, cumulative. And by the time the film ended, I was like, fuck, that was a good film.
Yeah, I think I was the same. I'm trying to remember, again, this one was the one that was quite a while back in the summer, so... But yeah, I think so, because I did the same as you as well, which was like, oh my, looked up, a bit shook and looked up like death penalties and kind of went down a rabbit hole because of that. And yeah, it was, by the end of the film, definitely I was invested in him as a character. Guess because he'd been tricked. I don't want to go into, so some aspect of that where it's sort of like, and it wasn't a trick that was a bad trick necessarily. It was a trick that sent him on a path, and then ended up being a trick that kind of had some pathos in it, I guess, or just
I felt that last section had a real generosity of spirit, like in terms of like almost everyone was like not forgiven for their sins exactly, but it was just like there seemed to be an acceptance, like, oh well, this led you to here and this led you to here, and you're going to die, and you know, I mean, it is what it is, and you seem to like when he meets the cop, like, and there's something about they kind of they kind of accept this relationship that they've had for so long, and they're no longer enemies just because and I don't know, there was a real emotional charge to it, which I totally blindsided me, because I was thinking, this where did this come from? Why am I being taken in? No, filmmaker, no, fuck you. You were too busy being cool and trying different things out earlier. You haven't. I'm actually quite sad. You haven't earned this yet. You have. How have you pulled this magic trick on me? Like I was, I found this film to be quite.
I mean, could it have been? I mean, it's too. I don't know. Yeah, we have kind of spoiled it a bit. The ending by mentioning the execution. But
well, we did give a spoiler, but I genuinely don't think, even if you know what's going to happen, because there's a certain inevitability, I don't think it spoils. I think you're still going to go on the journey yourself, right?
But I think the thing that the execution does is ground it suddenly, you know. So it's sort of like it's so you know, and then it just suddenly becomes really serious, and like, oh, okay, like 1 minute, you know. So he's kind of gone through being several different things, and towards the end he's kind of redeemed himself in some ways, or you know, or kind of in some ways, and
and he's also kind of released from like some kind of finally it's over kind of thing, like I don't have to be this person anymore, or
so I mean, I enjoyed it. That's all I'm going to say in terms of you know, I enjoyed it, and I think the third act, if you like, again, it was one of those films that's sort of in 3 acts in a way. Yeah. So, I forgot where we were going with that.
But you liked it.
I liked it, and the third act, which is did you mention the cult thing? But I don't know.
Is really my kind of slight confusion about why does that make sense to you? Do you see what I mean? Like why I found the film slightly like I don't know, suspicious, and then it won me. Or does that make sense to you, or do you not know?
I don't know, because it's too long ago now. It's like a month and a half ago since I watched it, or something. So, or a month ago. So I can't remember how I felt, but
did anyone else watch it with you?
Yeah, Claire watched it with me. Yeah, we both just enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't remember definitely the end was arresting and emotional. I agree with you there. I don't know if it probably did take us by surprise as well. Yeah, it's a very surprising film. You wouldn't expect a film where the bit that we were talking about,
the cult bit
ends there.
Yeah.
And you think that's the end of the film, and then it ends where it does. You think, okay,
yes,
that is not where you expect to be at.
No, because that bit is almost like gleeful, isn't it? In how like gratuitously kind of violent it is, and it's such fun to watch. I have to say, like, so that's what I mean. It's an interesting magic trick that they pulled off. Like they shouldn't really be able to do both things in one film, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
Okay then. I guess we shall move on to, I suppose, the biggest release of what we're talking about. The thing that probably more people are likely to see because it got quite reviews. And did you see this in a theatre by any chance?
No.
Oh, okay. So this is La Bête, right? Or The Beast. French-Canadian co-production directed by Bertrand Bonello, who co-wrote it with Julami Buriao and Benjamin Charibit. Apparently, Bertrand Bonello has a following. I think I've only seen one of his other films, a film called Zombie Child, which I didn't really like very much. Were you familiar with Bertrand Bonello's work?
No.
I was kind of interested, actually, because we'll get to this when we talk about it, but I was quite surprised to find that he's actually made quite a lot of films before this, because there was something a little bit of the young filmmaker still enthralled to his influences about it. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if someone had told me this was someone's debut feature or second of it. Not because it isn't accomplished and well made, but just in terms of, like, you know, everyone starts copying someone else, right?
Yeah.
And then after a while, you find your own voice. But this felt, I could see so many things glaring through this film, like influences from other filmmakers.
Well,
so I felt
you were probably able to spot them, whereas I wasn't. But I thought that I'd seen. I mean, it's a kind of a regression therapy film, isn't it? It's about regression therapy, but as developed by AI in the future to enable humans to become less attached to their what do they call them?
They say affections, right, is what they call it. But yeah, I guess emotions. And there's talk of there's been a civil war at some point around now, I guess, in 2024,
2015, I thought. No, that's 2025. Yeah, you're right. Sorry,
yeah. So you get the feeling that they're like it's
10 years.
Yeah, they're very much talking about our tumultuous times now and how maybe our own emotions are kind of, maybe a world without so many high emotions might actually run a bit better. But of course, you're taking away the humanity, right? That's the whole thing. And also, so it's also a love story about these two characters.
I mean, have you and I watched in recent times a sort of regression-y therapy or type film or something a bit similar to this?
Well, there's that Darren Aronofsky film, right? The Fountain, which is a similar kind of two people meeting at different points in time. And there's a few films that use that.
Yeah.
Last year at Marion Bad a little bit in there as well, especially the early parts of the talky bits of the. So again, we were talking, the buffalo, the squid, and the mollusk having different like movements. This film as well, right, has.
Yeah, this is another 3-act kind of film, whatever you're going to call it.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours long. Our two leads are Leah Sadu and George Mackay. As they're kind. They're lovers or almost lovers, I guess.
Yeah, they're lovers across time.
Yes. Oh, just like us.
Yeah.
We're lovers across toast.
Yeah. I wonder what our regressive personalities. I mean, we have regressive personalities, but I wonder what if we were to regress.
I think we're just regressive in general.
But if we, I don't know. I was trying to imagine you in a Georgian suit. I don't know. Whipping a cow. I don't. Yeah.
So, so there's different time periods. There's like France or Paris in like 1910 or something during the flood, and like you said, there's a future time, and then in between there's like, I suppose the our current is the one where George Mackay plays an incel character.
Yeah.
Quite convincingly. He's alarmingly good as the incel,
You think?
I thought. Yeah, I thought he did.
I thought his
good
acting
incel.
was quite bad, but
really,
yeah, no, but I mean,
I thought because all those incel guys when they record themselves, they seem like bad actors. So I think he nailed that.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering. So I don't think I've ever seen. So that's what I was wondering is either he's acting badly or he's doing bad acting.
Yeah, I think because almost everything we see of him in that section is via his videos, right? His YouTube videos or whatever, his social media posts.
But
right?
he was doing this kind of like that thing. Yeah, I don't know. Why don't girls want to, go out with me?
But that's exactly what they sound like. So I thought it was pretty well observed.
All right.
Yeah. And then she's like a model in LA, kind of doubting whether that's what she wants to be doing. So this film has garnered quite a lot of. It plays out in French and English. Leah Sue speaking English. George Mackay obviously learns some French. It's been, it's had a lot of praise heaped upon it. There's footage. All of a sudden, I was quite surprised. There's footage from that Harmony Korine movie, Trash Humpers, in it as well.
I haven't seen that.
Every now and again, which is a bit surprising. But
what do you mean? Yeah, sorry, no, say that again. There's footage from Trash Hunters where? What, interspersed in this film?
Trash Humpers.
Interspersed in this film?
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
it's
that.
The people in the old people face masks like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think I did not register that properly at all. I think I probably just thought I hallucinated. Okay, that was just.
I've not actually seen Trash Humpers. It's been on my list of things to watch for a while, but
yeah. We didn't know what that was about at all. That okay, yeah, and yeah. Why did they include that? Do you think? Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's been a lot of praise heaped upon this film, and I mean, for the first 40 minutes, I thought it was quite boring because there's a lot of talk, right? There's a lot of talking.
It was sort of at first it seemed like, oh no, is this going to be some sort of existential French kind of ponderance on the the transience of life or something? Going to keep flicking back through time. I don't know, kind of talking, pondering love and I thought this is going to be
Madame Butterfly.
Yeah,
and I thought, are they not going to shut up? Are they just going to fucking talk like this for 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
Thankfully, they do shut up after a while when it switches, and so there's the LA part, or there's part of the LA part when you realize he's stalking her and she's in danger. That part, I thought, played out really well up until a point. Like, this seemed like, wow, if this was in the middle of if this was like a straight up slasher film about a young woman being stalked by a crazy guy, this is quite well done. Like, it ratcheted up the tension, like when she's driving and you recognize the car behind her and she's at home. And I thought, oh, this is good. This is like, and then it's all right. He doesn't attack her, and then the earthquake happens in the morning, and then it switches into another kind of gear. Then,
yeah, but then it's got this kind of this existential kind of whatever, where she's where it's sort of anti-behavioral thing where she's she's because they were in love across time. Somehow it seems natural to her to so in the sense that in the sense that sort of Claire pointed out, there's sort of like Black Mirror-ish or something where you can't tell whether any of this is real or it's just simulated, because it's kind of the way they're behaving is not normal.
No, like you never buy her comforting him when he's the incel guy, like invading her house. You're just like, fucking no, just get away from me, you fucking weirdo. There's no way.
You know, why does she? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh God, yeah. You know, just. I'm gonna open the door, and you'll stand there with a gun. I'll just, come and.
Yeah, but of course that doesn't make sense unless there's some kind of weird, deeper connection or something across. Yeah. But that didn't. And then in that final section as well, I was like, I realized how much indebted to the films of David Lynch it was as well. Like that. There's a lot of Mulholland Drive.
Well, yeah, that was one. One was Twin Peaks.
Lost Highway was in there, and then when the
Roy Orbison. Yes, okay, the Lost Highway one. I can see
when they're singing the Roy Orbison Evergreen song comes in. I think, well, now you've straight into Blue Velvet territory, right? If you're going to have like a Roy Orbison song, so I was like, oh, okay, there's a lot of David Lynch here, but it's like, I don't know, it's like, David Lynch's stuff is so steeped in whatever the fuck a David Lynch film is steeped in, but this seemed a lot more like nearer to the surface and easy. Like, I don't know, it's like you could see the mechanics of it or something, so it wasn't as compelling as a David Lynch film, right? Because there wasn't that deep mystery of what the fuck is going on, because you kind of get what's going on.
Yeah, or it just seems too much like I mean, it's actually by the end it's sort of all right, but maybe that was somewhat relief as well. But because it kind of was a fairly long film, and and the length it was, you just thought, okay, you've done all right. But it's like
I felt that. I by the time it ended, I didn't hate the film at all, but I do feel it's massively flawed, and I don't quite understand why people are heaping so much praise on it. The other film it reminded me a little bit of as well is Cloud Atlas. Not so much the film, but the book of the film, and in the way how that book is almost like, well, I've got this kind of vague notion of this would be cool, and I've got this idea of another thing, a futuristic science fiction, but I haven't really thought any of them out properly, and so what I'll do is I'll just jump from the other one to the other, and then that prevents me from ever actually having to tell one story properly.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's just there was too much, philosophizing and or their connection to each other was kind of a bit wishy-washy and self-absorbed,
which was mentioned as well. It is vaguely based on a short story by Henry James, right? But apparently it's just a starting off point, right? I didn't read the short. Did you read the short story?
No. Do you know did you read a synopsis or something? I mean, is it
I read a synopsis of it, and it seems like it's I get it, because in that film, the short story is basically about this hunter who has a premonition, because that's the thing, the Lea Seydoux character has some sort of premonition that something terrible is going to happen to her, which they kind of lose track of a little bit, I found, towards the end of the film.
Well,
in the short story, he has this premonition, something awful going to happen to him, and he's so obsessed with it that he kind of ends up rebuffing the love of a good woman because he's obsessed with this. So I can see how that's the starting point of the film, right? But it goes off in all sorts of other areas.
it ends, without wanting to give a spoiler or whatever, but it ends with, yeah, again, it's sort of the ending of this film is almost, it's a bit crap, I'd say, but it's
well, it doesn't belong on this film.
Well, it's not that. It's just that to me, it just seems like the ending is what they've done is once they got the ending, then they worked loads of sort of wishy-washy philosophical kind of crap in there
which is weirdly what I thought about the pig, the bongo, and the fridge magnet, like that they worked backwards from a premise, right? So you think that maybe the same thing happened?
Well, I think they were working forwards, but they were probably struggling with it. This is a premonition I had, that they were working forwards, and then they had an idea of the ending, and then they worked backwards and like rewrote all this kind of stuff about, to try and make it, to try and add some sort of tragedy and importance to this love scenario, when really the original idea was probably more to do with kind of I don't know, just moving across time, or and this premonition idea, which, like you said, it went nowhere. That what was the? It didn't really. I mean,
I suppose unless it's the so. You were saying the end. See, I felt that the last kind of twist ending thing, like that would work really well in where you mentioned Black Mirror, like something like that, like a much more straightforward kind of, allegorical kind of science fiction tale with a twist in the end. That would work for that kind of thing. But I felt that ending at the end of this felt inappropriate for the all the stuff that had come before, and then suddenly they try and play it off as like a more straightforward, like a twist in the tail thriller or something. You think, well, that's not the film this was before.
These past life kind of regression-y films tend to have they have recurring things that are sort of chasing throughout, the lives, and this one started off with the premise that there's this beast, and it's called the beast, and it's something terrible is going to happen, and each life seems to kind of either compound or or get close to the terrible thing, but the death isn't the terrible thing, and then if the terrible thing is what happens at the end, is that
it's not
really work? I don't know.
No, I don't think it does. But like you said, though, I thought the film was at the end. I thought it was okay. There was some stuff to chew on.
Yeah,
so it was kind of worth the watch. Also worth mentioning, Lea Seydoux herself is fucking bulletproof. I love Lea Seydoux. I think she's great. I think she's really good in this film. Like she doesn't put a foot wrong. I think like the material might trip her up here and there, but I think she's excellent in this film, as always. So I don't blame her for any of this. I think she's doing. Did you not think? I thought she was really good.
Yeah, no, I thought she was good. I thought
she's one of our proper modern film stars, I think, because the camera loves her, right? Like she photographs extremely well, and she's also a fucking great actress, I think. So that combination is proper film star material, I think.
Yeah. She's good. And she can take on loads of different looks and look quite different in each one as well.
Yeah. She does have that weird translucent,
difficult to recognise at first, wasn't she? When she flipped from one thing to another. It takes you a little while to register there's the same person.
Right.
Whereas, what's his name? What was his name again?
George Mackay.
Yeah, I wasn't that keen on him really, but he was okay. But
yeah, well, like I said, I thought he was fine in it.
When I thought he was better as an incel, than as a as a whatever that first one was.
Plus, let's not beat around the bush and stop trying to be all highfalutin about it.
No.
Neither of us fancy Josh Mackay either, which also makes a difference.
Well, I couldn't. But yeah. Anyway, good-ish. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. No. It's certainly worth a look. Thought-provoking. Slightly confused as to why everyone thinks it's quite brilliant, because I don't think it is totally, and I'm quite surprised. Just because some of the influences are so close to the surface, I did feel as if this was a young person's film as opposed to someone who's been making films for 20 years or something. That surprised me a little bit because I didn't know much about.
So what reviews have you looked at? Or
the broadsheet ones that come up in the stars and that. Mark Hamill's a big fan of it as well.
Yeah, I haven't actually been aware of this film at all. So,
interestingly, Mark Hamill's take on it was slight. I mean, we have different. He liked it a lot more than I did overall at the end. I think he really liked it. But interestingly, he had a similar. He was similarly confounded in the same way I was about the ant, the rooster, and the wildebeest. That I was surprised, like it shouldn't work, but it did. He had a similar thing with the beast. I think, like he was he didn't expect it to work in the end, which this film didn't for me, but Snake Pigeon did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's like there seems the sort of the Marvel thing is over now, and then it's opened up some space for more mainstream kind of experimental films and things that it just seems to have. But for things that, like, for example, again, forgive my terrible memory, but films we did last time as well. Yeah.
Robin, every show we do.
I know, but I'm talking about like mainstream films. Like the one with Willem Dafoe with the Frankenstein-y type thing. What was it called again?
Oh, Poor Things.
Poor Things, yeah. Experimental films like that do seem to be getting some traction, because there seems to have Marvel sort of created a death pit, I think, for for mainstream cinema. But then it seems like it's now got to almost like start again. I think
there's definitely an appetite for people who are fed up of spandex and shit, right?
Yeah.
See something.
Yeah, because those films took a lot of good directors away.
Yes.
From Sam Raimi, Joss Whedon. It took a lot of good ideas away from experimentation. So I think it just seems like a sort of a language and a bunch of ideas need to be built up on top of each other, almost like from scratch, sort of like in the 70s or the 80s as well, when new ideas came along. It seems like the sort of fledgling sort of mainstream experimentation,
Phoenix from the ashes kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. Rather than and so both those films have that aspect of it to me, that where they don't come fully loaded with a whole bunch of they might reference films from 20-30 years ago, but that's not quite the same as referencing a film from last year or the year before. Do you know what I mean?
Or one thing
being part of a movement.
Annoyed me at the very end of this film as well, that instead of having proper credits, they just put a QR code.
Yeah, well, and then did you do the QR code? I told Claire to do the QR code, and then it's the credits. Nothing,
okay,
and it's so I didn't quite. That's
conveyed really badly, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It also won't work. But and that would probably piss people off, yeah. But is that to do with AI? Was that supposed to be an AI thing? Because that will date really badly as well. AI.
I know. I just seemed quite short-sighted, and I just thought, put the fucking credits on, for fuck's sake. Just like, oh, I'm not going to put the credits on. We're going to QR code. Yeah. What do you think of that? Like, no, fuck, just roll some credits.
Yeah, do definitely just roll credits. Don't have everyone in the cinema. Kind of. I thought, oh, is it to do with like, is it a really stupidly ill thought out way of reducing the climate footprint of the film? Because again,
either way,
that wouldn't work because you're just multiplying it by the amount of phones. Maybe it's carbon offsetting. Get people to,
if you have thoughts, keep them to yourselves. And I guess that's us done, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll be back for more exciting, can't quite remember what we watched and talk about it anyway, film discussion.
Yep.
Next episode of Day Release.
Yeah. Ciao.
Are you going to keep that in?
What, the ciao bit?
Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't.